So like Rebecca said, my name is Mallory. There are lots of things I could say about myself, but a few things off the top of my head. First off, I'm a full-time student at the moment, so if I seem really tired, that's why. I'm currently doing a master's program in community music, which is a really cool program at Laurier. Other things about me, as I mentioned, I work for Welcome Friend Association, which is the organization that runs both Rainbow Camp and our online program, which we call Rainbow Online Connection. I'm also involved in the United Church and Affirm United in many different ways. So within my local congregation, I'm the chair of our affirming committee, and we're in the process. We're not yet affirming, but we're in the process. And I also just recently joined Michelle and a number of others on the Affirm United Council. So I'm really excited about that. So today I wanted to talk, and I've got some games and activities in here as well, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the power of playfulness. And so to start with, we did a little bit of an icebreaker in our breakout rooms, and icebreakers are really important for a number of reasons. Icebreakers allow us to get to know each other, to laugh, and at camp, like many other places, we always try to start with icebreakers and get to know you activities, first and foremost to get people laughing. Studies have shown that if you are laughing with people, if you know things about them, the chances of things like bullying, calling each other names, any of the things that you want to avoid tend not to happen if you know the people you are with and if you are laughing together. And so in our breakout rooms, did anybody have any interesting answers to our questions that they want to share with the larger group? Nobody had any interesting answers to the question?
We had a lot of interesting responses. We had ginger ale, chocolate milk, melted chocolate, rosemary hibiscus tea, and then somebody said, I'm sure it was Diane Dwarka, said, what about the alcohol? So then we started talking about all the liquors, and then we thought about the fish and how they'd all be drunk.
Yeah,
our group dealt with the liquor too. We had ginger ale, hot chocolate milk, vodka, wine. Anyway, the question was interesting in that you didn't say salt water. If the ocean weren't of salt water, but of water. So we pondered that for a minute before we came up with our answers.
Any other interesting answers that people want to share with the group? Heather says in the chat, lots of alcohol references.
Just because Kenji said something when he came on, so I hope I'm not saying something he doesn't want me to share, but he suggested at the last minute, grape juice, so we could have communion all the time with the blood of Christ.
Oh, that's where that came from.
Well, thanks for sharing. So one of the great things with an open-ended question like that is that while you start on a topic, as you saw, most of you very quickly went in other directions with that. Some of you went towards communion and church. Some of you went towards alcohol and your favorite beverages. And so the joy of questions like that is you can take them and go wherever you want with that direction. And so I wanted to start by telling you a little bit about Rainbow Camp. So Rainbow Camp, as I said, is a summer camp for 2S LGBTQ teens. We are in Northern Ontario, although most of our staff and campers come from across Canada and the US. So I'm currently in London, Ontario, and normally we would be up in Northern Ontario for the summer. This summer, like many other camps, we couldn't run an in-person program due to restrictions, especially with travel. As I said, many of our campers come from all over the place. And so this summer we had to transition our program and look at how we could adapt what we normally do to an online format. And so we did that, and we created a program that we call ROC, or Rainbow Online Connection. So ROC is a program for teens and we do all sorts of things. So kind of a little bit, our three main kind of themes of programming of stuff that we try to do at camp is we try to do some education and activism stuff. So these are things that we think people need to know. So these are things like Trans 101, how to access healthcare for trans or non-binary people, gender and pronouns, programs like that that we think people can benefit from and that they need to know, as well as how to be an activist both for themselves and for others. Our second kind of stream of programming that we do, we call artistic endeavors. So these are creative things. So these are things like crafts, journaling, anything, songwriting, music, any of those kind of programming. And then our last one, and this was the hardest one to adapt to a virtual format, is active outdoors. That was a challenging one to adapt, but anything that involves movement, anything that involves any sort of movement, spending time outside and things like that. Okay, so as I said, I've got a few kind of games and things that we're going to play, but first I want to tell you a little bit about why games are important. So I want you to think back to when you were a child, when you were a teenager, young adult, and think of a strong memory you have of learning something. Doesn't matter what you learned, think about a memory of when you learned something. So I'll give you about 30 seconds just to think. And then once you've got that memory in your head, I want you to think about how you learned. Whatever it was you learned, how did you learn it? Was it through sitting quietly and listening to someone talk? Was it through music? Was it through playing games? I want you just to think about how it is you learned it and why that particular learning experience is stuck in your head. Okay, would anybody like to share what was going through their head? Again, you don't have to share what it is you learned, but I'm more interested in how did you learn it and why is that the thing that popped in your head when I asked the question? And you can share either by unmuting yourself or if you want to put in the chat, you can. Lou has a hand up, go for it.
I was thinking of when my mother taught me to knit. It was really quite funny because I've always been defiantly left-handed, and she demonstrated it to me, and I was sitting across from her, and she said, "This is how you do it." And she showed me, and I took my knitting needles and I did it. And she said, "But that's not right." And she sat beside me and she looked at what I was doing and she said, no, you do it this way. And I said, but it works, Mom. See, the pattern just shows up on the other side. And I knitted left-handed. And it's been a real act of defiance all my life to be able to do things left-handed that people did right-handed. And that's how I remember it, that I was able to look at what she was doing and convert it to left-handed knitting. So that's what sticks out in my mind.
Well, thank you, Lou, for sharing. Would anybody else like to share? Either in the chat or Andrea saw a hand up.
Yeah. So when I was in elementary school, I think I was in grade 1, I had a teaching assistant that taught me how to make like a box out of out of cards that were blank. And so I just remember sitting there and watching her, and I learned from hands-on as well. But that one was one that stuck out the most to me because it was the most interactive learning experience that I've ever had.
Cool. Thank you for sharing, Andrea. Anybody else want to share?
Sure. I would like to say that I am a slow learner for a lot of handy things. But when I went to camp as a kid, I was so proud of myself that I knew how to do a loop knot for a boat. The consecutive loop knots, and I thought, isn't that funny? At the time, I felt it's going to take me a long time to learn this, but I did it quite easily, and I was smug and proud of myself that I could do that at that time. Anyway, that just ran through my head, going back to being at Pioneer Pacific Camp on Thetis Island in BC.
Cool. And I think we have, thank you so much, Edward, for sharing. And we think we have time for one more, and Harry raised his hand. Go for it, Harry.
So real quick, I guess I would learn by fun. If I look at back in early days, anything that seems to stuck in my brain was by fun, and even my adult life, I learned better by fun, music, or games.
Cool. Thanks, Harry. So one of the things in our 4 people who shared, and those of you who didn't share, I'm sure this is true for you, most of what people remember learning most, they learned with someone else. They learned through someone else, whether it was a mother, a parent, someone at camp, a friend. Most of what we remember and most of what we enjoy learning comes from doing it with others, from having that relationship. And so that's why games and play are really important for us to form those connections so that we can learn as a group. And so I want to play a bit of a game with you guys. This is a game that we would play at camp called Singo. And so the way this game works is I'm going to divide you guys into teams in the breakout rooms. Okay? In the breakout room, you guys will have 2 minutes, and I'm going to give you all a word. In the 2 minutes in your breakout room, your job is to think of as many songs as you possibly can that use that word. Okay? Make a list. Okay? You will have 2 minutes to write down as many songs as you can think of that use that word, and then we're going to come back into the main room, all of us together. When we come back, we'll have a chance to share, and it will be a bit of a competition to see which group came up with the most songs. Does anyone have any questions before I move you into breakout rooms? And I know I haven't told you the word yet, but I'm going to do that right before I move you. Any questions first?
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, does the word need to be like in the title of the song or just in the song?
It does not have to be in the title. It just has to be in the song.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
Any other questions before I move us to breakout rooms? Okay, so I'm going to move you to breakout rooms. Your word is the word star, S-T-A-R, star. So in your rooms, you have 2 minutes to make a list of as many songs as possible that have the word star in them. Have fun, go. The word star. The way this works is when you went to your breakout rooms, that you were either in group 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, we're gonna go group by group, and you're gonna give me one song off your list. Okay, once someone says a song, it can't be said again. It can only be said once. If you have no songs left on your list, your team is eliminated, and we have the other teams left. Okay, final trick, some of you are asking if songs were real songs. If someone says a song and you don't believe them that it is a real song, you can challenge them, and someone on that team must sing the line of that song with the word star to prove that it is a real song.
Nice.
So we have 4 rooms. Just to be fair, I'm going to start with group number 4 and do 4, 3, 2, 1. So group 4 had Ali, Diane, Harry, Marion, and Michelle in it. So group
And
4,
Marion
one
was writing
song.
lists.
One
I
song
was
off your list,
writing the
group
list.
4.
And the first song on our list was Star of the East.
Okay, group 3, which is Edward, Maureen, Tiana, and Valerie.
We'll take, oh, sorry, we'll take the easy one of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
Okay, group 2, which is Andrea, Kathy, Kenji, and Sharon.
Mando by ABBA.
And then group 1, which is Linda, Lou, Lynn, and Rebecca.
Oh, Little Town of Bethlehem.
Okay, back to group 4.
Got that one, actually.
There's apparently there's a Madonna song that has something about a lucky star.
I think you have to sing that.
I did not recognize it. It's a different generation.
Okay, is that a challenge? Do I have to sing this then?
Yes.
Okay, so I think you are my lucky star. You're Madonna. She's dancing on the Venice boats and something like that. Come on.
I believe
Come
you,
on,
Michelle.
guys.
That's enough. That's enough. It's a real song.
Thank you, Mallory. Oh, thanks for the challenge. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That was group 4. So group 3.
We had stars shining down upon
Oh,
you.
that's a good one.
Oh, that is a good one.
Group 2.
All Star.
Group 1.
We had catch a falling star, and put it in your pocket, save it for a rainy day.
Okay, back to group 4.
I think we should all sing them, whether challenged or not.
When you wish upon a star.
Okay.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Group 3.
Oh, that was the one I was going to say. A Star is Born.
Okay, group 2.
Hope is a Star.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Group 1.
We had All the Stars.
Okay, back to group 4.
We Three Kings.
Or wonder.
Group 3.
Superstar.
Group 2.
Starry, Starry Night.
Group 1.
Star of Wonder.
Okay, back to group 4.
I will say Star of Wonder, unless it's other than I know, it's part of We Three Kings.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, group 1. You need another song then.
Uh-oh.
Jesus Christ Superstar?
Oh,
Okay, group 4.
nice save.
I've come to the end of my list.
Okay, group 4. You guys are out. Group 3.
I think Edward said this one, Stars in My Eyes.
Okay, group 2.
Oh,
Right.
Holy Night.
As a solitary
Oh.
star.
Group 1.
I think we're out.
Okay, group 3.
A star was his candle.
Okay, group 2.
I'm gonna let Andrea sing it. You were doing it.
Which one?
The
The one you
the
just did.
Star Christ Shines.
A star was his candle?
Oh no, Andrea for group 2. I wondered if
Oh,
you-
Christ shines as a solitary star. So you would have had to say hope. Hope is a star, right?
it's different.
Same. Different verse. Hope is a star is the hymn.
Hope is a star that shines in the night.
Kathy, I think someone already said that, so group 2 needs a
Okay.
different song.
Okay, you angels from the realms of glory.
Okay, group 3.
Have we said Oh Holy Night?
Yep.
Star of Bethlehem.
I think that one's been said.
Star of Bethlehem.
Yeah, it was said.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, group 3. I think you're out, so I think that means group 2
I
is our winning
just
group.
thought of a song.
So congratulations, group 2. You guys are our winners for this game. So when we played that game, before I sent you into the breakout rooms, it was pretty quiet at the start of this Zoom call. People weren't talking. It was very quiet. Our energy has changed. Through playing some games together, through laughing, our energy has changed. We are more energetic, or at least I am. People are talking. People are sharing, even in a virtual space. And for most of us, we haven't actually met everybody on this call. We may have met some of these people, but now we're laughing and sharing with strangers online. And so that right there is a clear example of the power of play and the power of laughter. So I want to share a little bit more about Rainbow Camp and about our online program. So mostly I'm going to be talking about our online program because that is what we are currently running. So Rainbow Online Connection, or ROC, started out this summer as an alternative to in-person camp. We couldn't have camp, but we wanted to do something. And so we had to look and adapt and figure out which games worked on Zoom. The one we just did is one that worked well. There are other games we tried that did not work well. But so there are lots of things like that. And so Rainbow Online Connection started in the summer, and we had so much fun this summer, and the participants, the campers, had so much fun that we decided we wanted to keep going. So we're still running our ROC, our Rainbow Online Connection programming. We're still running it. And so this is aimed at teens, roughly 12 to 17-year-olds, although we're slightly flexible in our ages. And we run all sorts of programming that they can come to. Some of it is educational. Some of it is active, involves movement. And some of it is artistic or creative. But one of the things we try to do in all of them is to build that sense of community, to give people that safe, that online space where they can be themselves, where they can ask their questions. So even if it's not formally a discussion group or formally a space where they can learn, just by being together, they're learning and growing together. So it's really important to us. And so some of the programs that we've been running, I just want to tell you about some of my favorite programs that we did, just because there are some really fun ones that we did. One of my favorite ones that we did in the summer, we did a program called MS Paint Bob Ross. So this was a program where we screen shared a Bob Ross painting video on Zoom, and everyone followed along using MS Paint. If you've never used MS Paint, it does not have a paint tool. It does not have layers. It does not have blending. But what was really cool about that was that all of our paintings looked completely different despite us following the same instructions. So that's one of the kind of programs that we ran that was tons of fun. We also had a few guest speakers and conversation groups and other things. We had someone doing sign language.
What's the MSP?
MS Paint. So on your computer. And so we've done a whole bunch of really kind of fun online programs for our teens. And what I want to show, I'm going to screen share something with you right now. One of the things that people sometimes ask is, does this play actually make a difference? You're getting people together, they're playing, they're laughing, they're forming these community. Does this actually make a difference? So I just want to screen share you just really quickly. This is what some of the people have said. So I'll show, give me 1 second. I want to screen share. Oh. Give me 1 second. Oh, doesn't want to show. There we go. So these are what some of the people have said about Rainbow Camp. And these are things that show that it does have an impact on some of these teens. And so I'll read some of them. It has given me a safe space that I can be 100% myself and feel valid and loved. Rainbow Camp showed me I'm not alone and people do care about me. First time I ever met a trans adult. I thought they didn't exist. It helped me become healthier. This camp changes lives, and this camp saved mine. I learned to love myself. I wasn't alone anymore. I'm not alone. I met so many friends who helped me through so much, and it helped me become healthier. I found the freedom I've always been looking for. Y'all are miracle workers. So this is one of the things that shows that we're not doing anything magical. We're not doing anything extraordinary. We're giving people a space. When we have in-person camp, that's a physical space that they fly to and spend time together. Right now, it's a virtual space where people can come to, but it's that space. It's that setting aside that space where people can be themselves, ask questions, do some learning, have some fun, do some laughter. And so that what I think is the really kind of life-changing, powerful part of that. The last thing I want to share with you before we have a bit of kind of Q&A and conversation is I want to share with you one of the things that when I'm talking to other camp people or other people who are interested in running programming is how do you make that safe space? How do you, right? You want a space where people feel comfortable. How do you make that safe space? And so some of those things are things that we did tonight in our group, right? At the start of tonight's meeting, we had someone introduce themselves and say, here are our rules. Here are our guidelines for how we would like people to behave. That's one way, right? We have Tiana, who is our equity monitor tonight, who is making sure that all of the voices are heard. People feel free to participate. We have Michelle, who's acting as our tech support, so helping to eliminate one of the barriers that might be a barrier to participation, right? And so we have these things in place tonight. So I'm going to screen share with you one of the things that we had to develop for our online camp was we had to look at our safe space policy for in-person camp, and we had to look and say, how do we create a virtual safe space? So this is one of our things that we created for our program to make sure that we had that safe space so that people could laugh, have fun, and gather together. And so these are what people had to agree to. So all of our staff, our volunteers, and our participants, our campers, for all of our programming have to agree to this. They are agreeing not to engage in behavior that bullies, demeans, or marginalizes others. They're being aware of different identities, gender, sexual, race, class, ability, spirituality. They're not sharing things outside of our space without permission. And they're agreeing to speak up if someone feels uncomfortable in that space for whatever reason. So if people don't feel comfortable speaking up for themselves, we encourage others to speak up on their behalf to practice activism both for themselves and for others. And so what I would like to do is there's two kind of conversations that I would like to have. First, if anyone has any questions, we can have a bit of a Q&A period. And then for the last little bit tonight, I'd like to have a conversation about how we create safe spaces, whether those are virtual safe spaces, in-person safe spaces, whatever that safe space looks like. But before we get into that, I'm going to open up for Q&A if anyone has any questions.
How do you advertise your camp?
How do we advertise our camp? So in-person, okay, so in-person camp, we do a bunch of advertising. So we have a number of people who participate through social service agencies, schools, caseworkers, people like that. So we have a mailing list with a bunch of those people. We also, a lot of our campers come back many years after years and will bring their friends. So word of mouth is a great way of advertising. Yeah.
Okay. And how long has it been running? How many years?
So Rainbow Camp started in 2012, and Harry didn't want me to draw too much attention to him, but Harry, who is on the call, is actually the founder of Rainbow Camp. Harry and his partner Chris founded Rainbow Camp in 2012. Started out with 1 week of camp with a very small group of campers, and it has grown exponentially. So last year, when we had in-person camp, we had 3 weeks, and we had almost 200 campers, but over between those 3 weeks, and it's still growing.
Amazing.
Mallory, what was that game that we played? Was it called Singo?
Yeah, so the game we played is called Singo. It's like bingo with an S. And normally when you would play it in camp, it would be played as a scavenger hunt. So normally the way you would play it is you would actually have a card that you'd have to try to fill in, and you would have to find the counselors hidden around camp. And when you found them, each counselor would have a word. And you would have to sing a song to cross off that square on your bingo card. So this was an adapted version for Zoom. I'm just looking at the chat. Maureen asked earlier, is it a Christian organization or would it be open to non-Christians? So Rainbow Camp is not openly religious. We do receive some funding from the United Church, but we are open to everybody. Most of the, I don't want to use the word religion, but most of the religion that we practice is spirituality, mindfulness, meditation. And so, for example, we always start our day with Alpha. An Alpha is a chance for us to set our intentions for the day, have a motivational quote, and to kind of set our intentions of what we plan on doing that day. At the end of the day, we end with Omega, which is a chance for us to reflect on what's happened that day, whether we met our goals, and to have a bit of conversation in the evening. We have had guests in the past come and talk about Indigenous spirituality. We had a guest speaker last year who came and did a labyrinth walk as a form of meditation. And so we are open to pretty well everything.
Can I jump in for a second, Mallory?
Yeah, go for it, Harry.
One of our challenges with clergy, and this is not just Rainbow Camp, but it happens in the summertime. So many clergy have weddings and funerals, and many congregations don't want to give up their clergy person because they want them to take it as holidays, which doesn't make sense. So all United Church camps, there's a big distance, for lack of a better word, between the camping ministry and what happens at the congregational level because of that. It's really, really hard for churches to buy in and to know what's going on at camp. So it's always been a challenge for Rainbow Camp, in particular, wanting LGBT positive people. And when we find them, then the whole issue comes down to, well, it's on my holidays. It's just not fair. So hopefully, I may take some heat for this, but as the church dies or becomes older and older and older, we will start replacing the congregations with more of a mindset of the younger generation and how we can include them. Anyway, that's my speech for tonight.
Andrea has a hand up. Go for it.
My question is there any, like, are you guys looking for volunteers for the online group, and is there like a certain age limit for those volunteers?
So yes, we are looking for volunteers, no age limit. So our online programming, we generally offer programs that are about an hour long in a whole mix of areas. So if you know anyone who is interested in volunteering, either for an educational program or a discussion group or anything like that, I'll put my email address in the chat. Feel free to send me an email with that. We do have staff on all of our calls. So we have staff who act as tech support and setting things up and handling all the registration and all of the behind the scenes stuff. And so we don't expect our volunteers to have any specialized technological knowledge.
Good. I'd be interested in volunteering at some point, but yeah.
Great. That would be amazing. I'll put my email in the chat.
Sounds good.
Sorry, my question, when it comes to really amazing safe spaces like this, I know a lot of emotions can come up for youth, and I'm wondering kind of how Rainbow Camp addresses that, what they kind of do in those situations.
Okay, so in terms of emotions, one of the things we do, and give me 1 second. One of the things we do, and I have to grab mine because I'm not actually wearing it. One of the things we do is we have our bracelets. Mine lives in my purse. So at the end of each week of Rainbow Camp, we have Paracord bracelets as part of our kind of closing ceremonies. And so I have mine for my 3 years I've been at camp. I'll hold them up. I don't like wearing mine, so mine are little tiny rings. But I have one from that year, red one, a blue one. And then this year we did rainbow ones, multicolored ones. And so at the end of each week of camp, anyone who's at camp gets one of these bracelets. And we encourage people to wear them year round to have them as a memory. And the idea is that these are all cut from the same string. It is one gigantic roll of string. They're all cut from the same string. We all have a piece of it to take physically with us home to wear throughout the year. Mine lives in my purse. So that's one way we do that. Another way with our online program Rock, one of the things we're hoping is that we can run this as a virtual program during the year paired with our in-person camp in the summer, so that people can have that intensive week at camp, but can also have the chance to connect throughout the year in a virtual environment. We also connect throughout the year through social media with some of our campers as well. I don't know if that answers your question, but hopefully it does. Any other questions?
Mine isn't really a question. Mine is a thank you to Harry. I am fortunate that I belong to a United Church in Waterloo, and Harry came down and spoke when Kelly McComb was the minister at the church, and that service was such an amazing chance to learn about Rainbow Camp. And I said to Harry at coffee time afterwards, Harry, when I have some money, I'm going to offer money to Rainbow Camp. And so this past year, I've been able to do that. And so when Harry posted this, shared this workshop on Facebook, that's how I found out about it, and that's why I'm here. And I think it's another way that the camp is advertised are things like this, and it's actual campers and people who are involved in the camp some way speaking to it and about it. And so for me to be here tonight and hear about the possibility of having year-round online as well, something that goes along with camp or as well as camp, is quite powerful to hear. And I really congratulate you that you have been able to know the importance of the camp and found creative ways to make it happen online, and to be able to continue to do that. That's pretty amazing, and I give you many blessings for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. One of the really cool things we found with our online camp was that we actually reached a different audience than we would for our in-person camp, which is one of the things we found really quite interesting. So this summer, in July, when we did our summer rock programming, I think it was about over half of our participants had never been to Rainbow Camp before. So over half of us had never actually attended our in-person camp, were brand new to us. We've never actually met them face to face. Their faces on a computer screen to us, but we've been able to kind of form that connection and include those people, which is really quite a powerful one. And same with volunteers, because being in Northern Ontario, normally for in-person camp, it's quite a commitment for volunteers. They have to fly up or drive up. We have to have a bed for them if they're staying overnight. Right? It's more of a commitment. But with the online space, we've had a number of volunteers who have said, hey, I've been following you for years. I love what you're doing. I can't give you a week or even a few days in the summer, but I'd love to give you an hour to lead a session. So we've had some really cool volunteers that we wouldn't have been able to have in the past for in-person camp.
That's great.
So it's really been an interesting opportunity to kind of grow and learn that way as well.
Diane's got a question.
I just wanted to find out, where is Rainbow Camp physically located?
So our camp is just outside of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario.
Thank you.
Very north.
Yes.
So we spend a lot of time fundraising for kids to be able to travel from anywhere in Canada to and from camp if they need to, as well as we help pay for, we can pay for the registration as well. And on one other note, when we were talking about the word, how we get word out, to give you an example of what happened this year before COVID, is we opened up camper registration, I don't know, was it January 1st or 2nd? And within 2 weeks, we were over half full.
And
So,
is the camp like 1 week long?
I'll let Mallory go now. Go
Yeah,
for it.
so our in-person camp is normally 1 week long, and so we have different campers each week.
Thank you.
So is the property that it sits on, is it owned by the United Church of Canada, or is it privately owned?
We rent a space, so we rent a facility.
Oh, I see, I understand. And you have it for 3 weeks.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah, our goal for 2021 was to have 4 weeks of camp, and 1 week on the East Coast and 1 week on the West Coast.
Oh.
But we're going to be a couple of years behind before we can grow, because we eventually want to do 8 weeks of camp, and we definitely have the programming for it. We'll definitely have the kids. It's just a matter of moving staff from one facility to another, right, and working with it's mostly United Church camps that are interested. So we not only have to bring our staff, but we have to work with their staff because they want to learn how to become affirming and how to be welcoming, so it's a whole other set of challenges, but one that we're up for.
Great. Thank you.
How many people in camp? How many attendees?
So in-person camp, we have, last year I was the assistant director, so I was in charge of all of our travel bookings and confirming with parents and all of that communication. So I know the exact answer. We had 47 camper beds each week. So if we were full, we had 47 campers plus our staff and volunteers, which is a nice size. So it's big enough that you can do big group games and things like that, but small enough that you actually get to know people in a really kind of close way.
Mallory's kind of understating herself. She's a travel agent. She's just amazing at what she does.
I was also the waterfront director.
I had a question that makes me wonder if, so I've been going to Rideau Hill Camp for a long time, maybe 8 or 9 years each summer. And I wondered if that was one of the camps that was interested in hosting a week. Does that ring a bell here in Ottawa?
Not to me, but maybe Harry.
One camp was on the East Coast, and we were just starting discussions on the West with nobody in particular yet.
Okay, so it's, as you say, 2021 or beyond.
Yeah, we were pretty much counting on 2022 to start life back, hopefully.
Okay, well, if you wanted to move in the, Ontario region, I mean, I'd love to connect you with the folks at Rideau Hill Camp here, close to Ottawa, not right in Ottawa, obviously.
That would be fantastic. I know we've had a few, I want to say 6 or 7 people come to camp last year from the Ottawa area. So we do have some people who travel to Sault Ste. Marie from that area.
Awesome.
Jenny, do you want to put your email in the chat?
Moi, yes.
Any other questions?
I'm just watching the time here, Mallory, so I think we're ready to move on.
Okay. Okay. And then just we've got a few minutes left for me before I hand it over to you guys to end off for the night. But the last kind of few minutes of my time, I want to have this conversation about how can we create these safe spaces elsewhere? Because Rainbow Camp is fantastic. Rock, our online programming, also fantastic. But we want to kind of open these safe spaces everywhere and not just for teens. So think of all ages. So I want you to think of a space you're already involved in, somewhere that feels safe to you. And I want to see if we can brainstorm what makes a safe space. So again, feel free to contribute either vocally, or if you want to put it in the chat, you can participate that way as well. What makes a safe space? Representation, says Jenny.
I think for me, given like the Zoom experience, there's safety in having assurance that people are who they say they are. I know in the early ongoings, all the Zoom bombers that were, disrupting church services. I mean, because that's my reality. So we had to put in some protocols to ensure that people were who they say they are. So to give that sense of safety and security, and which makes inclusion a little tricky, because if there's no one, if you're new to a community and there's no one to vouch for you, it's a balance, I think, that we're still not quite getting right. But I think that's just the nature too of being online and people being able to access so much information, to be in so many places, so easily.
Yeah, that was one of our challenges when we started designing our online program for the summer, was what do we, we're dealing with teenagers. How do we know that they're actually teenagers joining our programming? And how can we verify that? And what if they don't have a camera? What if they, what if they don't feel comfortable turning on their camera? How do we balance their freedom and their expression and their, we don't want to force people to participate via camera. How do we balance that? So that was one of the challenges we had, was how do you know who's there virtually? There's some good ones in the chat. In the chat, we have community, knowing you are not alone, being able to be yourself, authentic listening. Jenny talks about being a queer chaplain and knowing the counselors could open up. Reading age-appropriate books helps. So those are all great things to have as part of your community.
Something that I always find very important is just being explicit. Like some people feel that it's enough to have a welcoming space, but really being explicit and stating that you are welcoming and safe for certain identities, that's really important.
And thinking ahead to some of those issues that might come up with some of those identities. So not forcing people to be advocates for themselves, or force, if someone is coming to you and they are trans, it's not on them to educate you.
Right.
It's not on them to, it's great if they can advocate for themselves about what they need. It's even better if they don't have to. Anyone else want to share anything?
Comment with regard to trans. Having known a fair number of long since post-surgery trans people, I warn people, do not assume that you do not have a trans person in the room. It's quite possible.
Yeah.
And you might not know it.
Yeah, so being opening.
Behave appropriately.
Yeah, being open and inclusive to the people, even if you don't know they're there.
Don't assume they're there to educate you. Do your own homework.
Yep. Okay. If nobody else has anything else to add, that is all I have for you guys tonight. I'll pass it off to, I guess, Rebecca is going to be closing us. That is all I have for you. If anybody has any further questions, I put my email address in the chat earlier. I'll put it again now so it's at the bottom so you can find it. Feel free to send me an email if you have any questions or just want to talk about any of this. Otherwise, I will pass it off to Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Mallory. I know that I learned a lot, and I feel like a lot of things that I kind of was starting to grasp but didn't quite have the words for were crystallized, which was a really interesting and wonderful experience. So thank you. For all
I'm
that.
so glad you're there.
Yeah.
So yeah, as we're closing today, I'll pass it off to Michelle just for a moment of stewardship.
Yeah, I'll just check. Oh, am I on mute?
No, you're good.
I'm muted. So I've just put a chat message into the chat box for us all, just so that you fully know what we are. I want to have transparency with you. Affirm United, Sa Famille Ensemble is a not-for-profit organization, and we are a proud partner of the United Church of Canada. We are funded by membership fees and donations. We work for the full inclusion of all sexual orientations and gender identities. The speaker has been pastoral care and equity monitor have all been compensated an honorarium for their work in this evening's gathering. The Kitchen Sink series is sponsored by the Regional Councils of the United Church of Canada, Antler River Watershed, Horseshoe Falls, Western Ontario Waterways, Shining Waters, and Affirm United Sa Famille Ensemble. We would love to know your feedback. You can email directly communications@ausc.ca. It goes privately to me and me alone. And if you would like to support our work, you can make a donation through PayPal at the link that I've enclosed in the chat. I'm going to pass it back. Thank you very much, Mallory. It was wonderful to learn these things. I'm going to pass it back to Rebecca to talk about what we're going to do next week.
Yeah, so next week next event is November 3rd at the same time, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. And that week we're talking about the theme of queer joy, gifts of identity. So that will be a very fruitful conversation, and I invite you all to come and engage in that as well, if you're able. And then just to close for the night, I ask Kathy Douglas if maybe you could give us a blessing.
Sure. Let us leave this space together, knowing there are new ways to see each other and to see ourselves, to understand new ways of being in the world. We hope for healing, we hope for love, and we hope for joy. May we go from this place knowing each other a little bit better and knowing ourselves and being open to the great world around us. Peace.